There is a strange paradox woven into the fabric of our world. Men and women consumed by cruelty believe they rise higher as they push others lower. They think their harsh words, their betrayals, their mockery, their coldness of heart give them power. To them, cruelty is not shame. It is their weapon, their pride, and even their entertainment. But what they do not realize is that every act of cruelty is a chain being forged, and the very chain they use to bind others will one day bind them. God has set into motion a justice deeper than human understanding. He is not blind, nor is he deaf. The tears that fell from your eyes in silence, the pain you carried in your chest when no one believed you, the moments you cried out in despair, none of them slipped past his gaze. When cruelty was unleashed against you, heaven recorded it. When lies twisted against your name, when hands meant to comfort instead wounded, when voices meant to encourage instead tore you down, God saw, and in the economy of eternity, nothing is lost. The proud may think themselves free as they trample others. They may laugh in the moment, convinced that their power is secure. But cruelty is like a stone tied around their own necks. The more they cast it outward, the tighter it binds them. They believe they are sowing strength, but in truth they are sowing weakness. They believe they are planting victory, but they are sowing ruin. For cruelty is not a seed that produces fruit, it is a chain that produces bondage. Ask yourself, how many have harmed others and believed themselves untouchable, only to find their cruelty catching up with them? How many kings of history, how many rulers, how many family members, friends, or co-workers thought their harshness was power, but lived long enough to see it choke them? Because the one who rules heaven does not allow cruelty to go unchecked forever. God's judgment may not fall in the very moment of betrayal, but it always falls. Sometimes it is slow, like rust creeping over iron. Other times it comes swiftly, like lightning splitting the sky. But always, cruelty turns back on itself. And here lies the mystery. Your suffering was never wasted. What they used to hurt you, God is transforming into the very evidence that condemns them. Every lie told against you, every wound they gave, every betrayal, they thought these were victories. But in God's design, each of those moments was another link in the chain being wrapped around their own souls. While you rise, they will stumble. While you heal, they will remain restless. While you move forward in the grace of God, they will be unable to escape the prison their cruelty built. The cruelty they use to diminish you becomes the chain that diminishes them. The very words they hurl at you will echo in their own minds, robbing them of peace. The betrayal they plotted against you will become the mirror that reflects their emptiness. The mockery they once laughed with will become the silence that haunts them in the night. God does not need you to avenge yourself. He allows their own cruelty to be their judgment. So take heart. Do not think for a moment that their harshness was the final word. Do not think their cruelty means your story ends in despair. God is still writing. He is still working. He is still moving pieces unseen. And the cruelty that once cut you will become the very evidence that chains them forever. They thought they broke you, but in reality they broke themselves. And you will not stay in the pit where they left you. God is lifting you higher even now. He is taking the very things that were meant to bury you and using them as the soil for your growth. He is exchanging your pain for strength, your tears for wisdom, your wounds for testimony. As they sink deeper into the weight of their own chains, you will rise in the light of God's justice. The cruel may think their story is written in stone, but stone crumbles. Pride shatters and chains rust away in the fire of divine judgment. God alone decides the end, and he has promised that those who use cruelty as a weapon will one day discover it is a weapon turned against themselves. So let the cruel laugh for now. Let them mock, let them boast. Their time is short, their chains are long, and their judgment is certain. As for you, stand tall, hold fast, and lift your eyes to the God who sees. For he is faithful, and he will turn their cruelty into the chain that holds them back forever. God has set into motion a justice deeper than human understanding. He is not blind, nor is he deaf. The tears that fell from your eyes in silence, the pain you carried in your chest when no one believed you, the moments you cried out in despair, none of them slipped past his gaze. There is a quiet comfort that many forget. God is not absent in the shadows where you wept. He does not slumber when your heart is breaking. Every sigh, every tear, every whispered prayer you thought no one heard has reached his throne. You must understand that divine justice is not like human justice. Humans miss details, overlook wrongs, and sometimes protect the guilty. But God misses nothing. He has counted every tear you shed. He has written every pain in his book, and what was dismissed by men is remembered by heaven. Often, cruelty disguises itself in ordinary moments. It isn't always a public humiliation or a dramatic betrayal. Sometimes it's the dismissive words of a family member who should have defended you but instead belittled you. Sometimes it's the cold silence of a friend who chose betrayal over loyalty. Sometimes it's the subtle disrespect of someone who smiled to your face but whispered daggers behind your back. To the world, these moments seem small, forgettable, unworthy of judgment, but God sees them all. He knows that behind every small cruelty lies a heart that chooses darkness over light. Think about it. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, it wasn't just an act of jealousy. It was cruelty, rooted in pride and hatred, that sold him into slavery. His brothers thought their cruelty had ended his story, yet God recorded every detail, and when the time was right, the very cruelty that was meant to bury Joseph became the stepping stone to his rise. God's justice allowed the cruelty to become evidence, not against Joseph, but against those who inflicted it. This is the mystery of divine justice. It allows space for cruelty to seem powerful, but only for a moment. It allows the wicked to act freely, but never beyond the limit God has set. Like Pharaoh, who hardened his heart, they may believe themselves invincible, but the harder the heart, the heavier the fall. The more cruelty they unleash, the thicker the chains that bind them. You must never think God is idle when cruelty strikes. His silence is not absence. His delay is not neglect. It is mercy, for them and for you. Mercy because he gives them time to repent. Mercy because he gives you time to grow in faith. But when his time comes, there is no escaping his judgment. Those who laughed at your pain will one day weep under the weight of their own. Those who thought their cruelty was strength will discover it was their prison all along. And here is your comfort. Nothing was wasted, not one tear, not one silent night, not one ache in your chest. God has preserved them all. What men overlooked, heaven magnified. And when he moves, the record of your pain will not be forgotten. It will be transformed into the very chains that hold your oppressors back. The proud may think themselves free as they trample others. They may laugh in the moment, convinced that their power is secure. But cruelty is like a stone tied around their own necks. The more they cast it outward, the tighter it binds them. Pride has a way of blinding people to their own destruction. Those who inflict cruelty often walk with heads high, believing their actions carry no consequence. They think that by hurting others, they are proving their strength. To them, your tears are weakness, Your silence is defeat. Your forgiveness is foolishness. But they cannot see the invisible stone fastened to their own necks. Cruelty is never free. Every harsh word, every act of betrayal, every unjust action is like a weight added to their own soul. Imagine a man walking into the sea, tying stones to himself with each step. At first he laughs, mocking those watching from the shore. Look how strong I am, look how untouchable I am. But as he walks deeper, the weight begins to pull him down. The very stones he once boasted about become the reason he sinks. That is what cruelty does. It masquerades as power, but in truth it is bondage. There is a law in creation that God Himself designed. You reap what you sow. No one escapes it. If you plant seeds of kindness, you reap kindness. If you sow mercy, you reap mercy. If you sow cruelty, you reap chains. The proud believe they have risen by pressing you down, but their rise is only an illusion. What seems like elevation is merely the scaffolding of their own fall. History itself testifies to this truth. Great empires rose by cruelty, enslaving, mocking, and oppressing others. But one by one they collapsed, their cruelty becoming the very ruin that ended them. Their chains were not visible in the beginning, but as time passed, their own violence bound them until they could no longer stand. And this is true not only in nations, but in families, friendships, and workplaces. The one who mocks you now will one day choke on their own words. The relative who disrespected you to feel superior will one day be trapped by the bitterness they nurtured. The friend who betrayed you for selfish gain will one day find themselves empty and alone, held back by the very cruelty they celebrated. God does not need to hurl punishment from the skies. Cruelty carries its own punishment within it. Like venom in the bloodstream, it spreads quietly, destroying from within. The cruel believe they are in control, but truly they are enslaved. Enslaved to arrogance, enslaved to bitterness, enslaved to pride. And when the weight of that bondage becomes unbearable, they will find themselves unable to move forward. So, when you see the proud laugh at your pain, remember, they are not as free as they appear. They are walking with stones tied to their souls. Their laughter is hollow. Their victories are temporary. The very cruelty they wield is dragging them into chains they cannot escape. You, though wounded, are freer than they are, because your heart belongs to God, and He lifts what weighs you down. Ask yourself, how many have harmed others and believed themselves untouchable, only to find their cruelty catching up with them? How many kings of history, how many rulers, how many family members, friends, or co-workers thought their harshness was power, but lived long enough to see it choke them? Because the one who rules heaven does not allow cruelty to go unchecked forever. There is a pattern woven into the story of humanity, a thread that repeats across generations. Those who rise by cruelty eventually fall by it. They may seem secure in their authority, whether it is the authority of a ruler over a nation or the authority of a family member over a home. But cruelty has a way of catching up. It travels silently, like a shadow that never leaves its owner. They may walk into grand halls or sit comfortably in their pride, but the shadow follows, waiting for the appointed time to reveal itself. Think of Pharaoh in Egypt, who enslaved the children of Israel. He believed his cruelty secured his throne. He thought harshness made him strong, that oppression built his empire. But in the end, the same cruelty that tightened chains on the Israelites became the chain that dragged him into the sea. His cruelty blinded him, hardened him, and led him into ruin. This is the pattern. Cruelty always returns. It is not only written in Scripture, but also reflected in the stories of our own lives. How many have you known who mocked kindness, who laughed at humility, who thought gentleness was weakness? For a while they seemed to flourish, they gained influence, they enjoyed power, and they boasted of victory. But as the years passed, their lives began to reveal cracks, relationships broken, peace absent, joy hollow. Their cruelty, once celebrated, began to imprison them. God's justice is not limited to kings and rulers. It touches every heart that chooses cruelty over compassion. That relative who betrayed you to elevate themselves, who found joy in your pain, may for a season appear to prosper, but cruelty cannot carry anyone forward forever. It rots from within. It poisons their own future. The promotion gained through betrayal will one day feel like a curse. The friendships won by mocking others will one day collapse in isolation. The cruel always believe they are untouchable, but the truth is that they are the most vulnerable of all. Why? Because cruelty separates them from God's favor, and without His favor nothing lasts. Wealth crumbles, power diminishes, laughter fades, and applause dies. What they thought was strength becomes weakness. What they believed was victory becomes defeat. The cruelty they hurled outward circles back like an arrow, striking them in the very place they thought was secure. Do not envy the cruel when they seem to rise. Do not be deceived when they appear untouchable. Their chains are already forming. Every cruel word they speak is another link added. Every unjust act is another weight attached. They are building the very prison that will hold them back. You may not see it yet, but heaven sees. You may not witness it in the moment, but the day will come when the cruelty they used against you becomes the evidence that condemns them. Hence the evidence that condemns. This is why the scriptures tell us not to fret over evildoers or envy those who do wrong. They are like grass that springs up quickly but soon withers. Their cruelty is not forgotten, their power is not permanent, and their laughter will not last. And here lies the mystery. Your suffering was never wasted. What they used to hurt you, God is transforming into the very evidence that condemns them. Every lie told against you, every wound they gave, every betrayal, they thought these were victories. But in God's design, each of those moments was another link in the chain being wrapped around their own souls. When you endured cruelty, it may have felt as though it served no purpose. Perhaps you asked, "Why, God? Why did you let them do this to me? Why didn't you stop it?" In the silence, you may have assumed that your pain was meaningless, that the cruelty inflicted upon you had no weight in eternity. But the truth is far more powerful. Nothing is wasted in the kingdom of God. Not your tears, not your trials, not your wounds. Each moment of suffering has been preserved, not to condemn you, but to condemn the very ones who inflicted it. They thought their cruelty silenced you, but in reality it spoke louder in heaven. Every lie spoken against you was recorded, every act of betrayal was noted. Every wound they thought forgotten has become a testimony against them. And the God of justice does not allow testimony to go unheard. He transforms your suffering into evidence. He turns what they used as a weapon into the very proof of their guilt. Consider Job. His suffering was intense, and his friends were cruel in their words, accusing him of sins he did not commit. To them, their cruelty was justified. They believed their judgments lifted them higher, even as Job sank lower. But God turned every word they spoke into evidence. In the end, Job was vindicated, and his friends were rebuked. His suffering became the stage on which God displayed both justice and restoration. This is the same for you. The cruelty they inflicted is not wasted. It is working. It is working in you, shaping your endurance, deepening your faith, and strengthening your spirit. but it is also working against them, binding them tighter, sealing their fate, exposing their darkness. God takes what was meant for evil and uses it for good. But that good does not erase the judgment of the wicked. Instead, it amplifies it. Think of their cruelty as a chain being forged link by link. With every insult, another link is added. With every betrayal, another clasp is tightened. With every moment they delighted in your pain, the chain grew heavier. They do not see it now, but the weight is there. And when God's appointed time arrives, that chain will pull them back. They will be unable to move forward, unable to rise, unable to escape. Their own cruelty will hold them. And you? Your suffering will rise as testimony. What they meant to harm you has already become part of the evidence God uses to elevate you. They rejoiced in your pain, but that rejoicing has become their shame. They celebrated your fall, but that celebration has become their downfall. God wastes nothing. Every tear, every wound, every betrayal, they all serve a purpose in His design. So take heart. Your suffering is not meaningless. It is being transformed, silently, powerfully, into both your vindication and their judgment. While they laughed, chains were forming. While you cried, heaven was recording. And while you thought it was wasted, God was weaving it into a justice so complete that none will escape. While you rise, they will stumble. While you heal, they will remain restless. While you move forward in the grace of God, they will be unable to escape the prison their cruelty built. There is a remarkable contrast that unfolds when God steps into the story. The same cruelty that was used to break you becomes the very reason you rise. And at the same time, those who laughed at your pain begin to stumble under the weight of their own actions. It is almost poetic. Your healing is their haunting. Your freedom is their bondage. The cruel do not understand the mystery of God's grace. They believe that by hurting you, they have ended your story. They think their betrayal defined you. Their mockery defeated you. Their rejection silenced you. But in truth, those moments only became the soil from which God caused your strength to grow. You are not where they left you. You are rising, step by step, even if they cannot see it yet. The very cruelty that wounded you became the place where God planted resilience, wisdom, and unshakable faith. But look at the cruel. They may appear strong, but there is no peace in them. Restlessness is their companion. Even in laughter, there is emptiness. Even in victories, there is unease. Their cruelty has built a prison around them, one that looks invisible to the world, but is heavy upon their souls. They walk into rooms and cannot find peace. They try to build relationships, but suspicion eats them from within. They attempt to run forward, but the chains of their past cruelty drag behind them. And this is why Scripture declares that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Grace is the very thing that lifts you as you heal. Grace allows your tears to become wisdom, your wounds to become testimony, and your scars to become reminders of God's faithfulness. While they stumble in arrogance, you rise in humility. While they remain bound by the weight of their own cruelty, you are carried forward by the power of divine love. Think of David. When Saul's cruelty pressed down on him, it seemed Saul had all the power. But while Saul sank deeper into restlessness, tormented by jealousy, consumed by fear, David rose. He rose in strength. He rose in faith. He rose in favor with God. Saul stumbled into his own destruction, unable to escape the prison his cruelty built, while David healed and stepped into kingship. This same principle echoes in your life. Perhaps you've seen it even now. Someone who hurt you deeply, who thought their cruelty left no mark upon themselves, begins to show cracks in their own life. they cannot find peace. They cannot move forward. Their cruelty becomes the shadow that follows them, whispering at every step. You, on the other hand, though scarred, walk lighter with each passing day. Your healing comes not from them, but from the God who lifts burdens, the God who restores. This is the unshakable truth. The cruel cannot outrun their chains. And you, though broken for a season, are destined to rise higher than you imagined. Their cruelty is their downfall. Your endurance is your crown. While they stumble, you will stand. While they remain restless, you will rest in the grace of God. While their cruelty binds them forever, God's love frees you eternally. The cruelty they use to diminish you becomes the chain that diminishes them. The very words they hurled at you will echo in their own minds, robbing them of peace. The betrayal they plotted against you will become the mirror that reflects their emptiness. The mockery they once laughed with will become the silence that haunts them in the night. Cruelty is never forgotten by the one who inflicts it. Long after the laughter fades and the act is done, the memory lingers. At first, the cruel may feel victorious, empowered by the pain they caused. They may replay their mockery as triumph, convinced they gained something by your suffering. But time is a merciless teacher. The very words they spoke to diminish you become chains around their minds, replaying in whispers they cannot silence. You see, God has designed the human soul in such a way that cruelty cannot coexist with peace. It eats away like rust on iron. A person may cover it with smiles, with success, with distractions, but deep inside the echo remains. The lie they told against you becomes the voice that questions their own integrity. The betrayal they carried out becomes the mirror reflecting their emptiness. They may try to drown it out with noise, with busyness, with pride, but in the stillness of night, the silence returns, and the silence is heavy. That is why so many who build their lives on cruelty never find joy. They may gain riches, but they do not gain rest. They may gain followers, but they cannot trust them. They may gain recognition, but it cannot soothe their emptiness. Their cruelty becomes a chain that pulls them back from true peace. Every word spoken in malice, every action taken in pride, becomes part of the prison they cannot escape. This is divine justice at its most intimate, not fire from the sky, not thunderous judgment, but the turning of their own actions into torment within their hearts. God does not need to strike them visibly for their cruelty to destroy them. He allows their own words, their own betrayal, their own mockery to echo so loudly within that it robs them of the very peace they thought they gained. So now, when you look back at the cruelty you endured, I want you to see it through new eyes. It was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of God's justice. Every harsh word, every betrayal, every act of mockery, they were not victories against you, but chains being forged against those who inflicted them. While they thought they were diminishing you, they were diminishing themselves. While they thought they were elevating their pride, they were only securing their fall. And here you stand, still breathing, still rising, still walking forward. That in itself is proof of God's hand upon your life. If their cruelty truly had power over you, you would not be here today. You would have been destroyed, but instead you are alive, you are growing, you are healing. That is the evidence that cruelty never wins. It may wound, but it cannot conquer when God is on your side. Do not let bitterness bind you, as their cruelty has bound them. Do not let hatred poison your soul. Leave them to the judgment of God, for He has already set in motion the chains that will hold them back. Their own words will echo in their minds. Their own actions will rise as witnesses against them. Their own betrayal will be the mirror that shows them who they have become. And you will not have to lift a finger, because God Himself will fight for you. Remember the cross. What greater act of cruelty has the world ever seen? Innocence mocked, purity condemned, love crucified. Those who struck him thought they had won. But the cruelty they unleashed became their chain, and the cross became the victory that broke their power forever. If God could turn that cruelty into triumph, can He not do the same for you? Lift your head, child of God. You are not defined by what they did. You are defined by who He is, and He is faithful, He is just, He is mighty. Their cruelty will not write your story. Their betrayal will not decide your future. Their laughter will not drown your destiny. God has the final word, and His word is life, freedom, and vindication. So let them plot, let them scheme, let them boast. Their time is short. Their chains are long, and their judgment is certain. But you walk free. Walk healed. Walk in the confidence that every act of cruelty against you is already being turned into a testimony of God's justice. For in the end, God will turn their cruelty into the chain that holds them back forever. And you will rise, unchained, unbroken, unstoppable, because the one who holds your future is greater than all the cruelty in this world.